Hello, my name is Ethan Brazel, and I had the pleasure of sitting down with the owner of Angelo's Market in New Britain, Connecticut last week to talk about the rich history of his establishment, when he started, took over, when the place started to get big, and what legacy he wants to leave behind. But before we get into that interview, I just want to talk about the place as a whole. When I got there, I walked in greeted with smiles, good mornings, hellos from everyone working. It's just a great environment. And the biggest thing I noticed right when I walked in was the smell. It's weird to say, but it just smells like one of those places you want to eat at. You walk into a restaurant or a deli, and that smell just hits you, and you're like, yeah, this is gonna be great, great food, a great place to be. And that's kind of the vibe it gave off right when I walked in. So I knew I was in for a treat right when I got there, and Joe did not disappoint. Um, he treated me well. He gave me all the answers I was looking for. He was very open and honest about how he got involved, about the history of the place, and where he hopes it goes in the future. So without further ado, here's the interview with Joe. Good morning, Joseph. Thank you for meeting with me today.
You're welcome.
The first question I have is um, just tell me a little bit about Angelo's Market, where it came from, how it started, and how you got involved.
Angelo's Market was started approximately 85 years ago by an immigrant. His name was Angelo. Angelo was a famous opera singer, believe it or not, and he lived in Rome, and his family had a store in Rome, but he never really liked being in the business. He was an actual opera singer. He sang at the Vatican. He sang all over Italy. He sang all over the world. And then he came on tour to sing in New York City at the Metropolitan. So when he was coming to sing there, at one point he had met his wife, which, then he ended up staying in America. He ended up being on the Ed Sullivan Show. This is the story he told me. And then from there, he migrated to Connecticut, where his wife was from. Then from there, he really couldn't. Back in those days, you really couldn't make it as a opera singer. It was hard to make a living doing it. He did teach and stuff like that, but he knew this business. He knew how to cut meat. He knew that this kind of, it's called salumeria. Salumeria is like a deli in Italy, and he worked here in New Britain. And then from there, he decided, you know what, I'm going to open up my own. He opened up a small store. It was on somewhere in New Britain. I can't remember the exact name of the street. And him and his wife's name is Gloria, they opened up the store. And then from there, they moved several times. Then I immigrated from Italy in 1975. I was a young boy. I was 9 years old. And then when we came here, I was 11 years old. My father says, "Hey, listen, we were not well off, and I had to go to work." My father says, go to Angelo's Market over there. And at that time, Angelo's Market was on Osgood Avenue. It was a small store, probably maybe 1,000 square feet, if that. A small little store, tiny little market. He sold cold cuts and Italian product. So went there, and I says, "Excuse me, Angelo. I was looking for a work. Can can I get a job here?" And he says, "Well, what's your name?" So on and so forth. And he says, "Okay, come in after school. Time you get out of school." I said, "Well, 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock." It's okay. So that summer, I believe, I was going into sixth grade, and I said, after school one day, I got off the bus. I went there, and he goes, "Okay," and gave me an apron, and goes, "All right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and fill up the shelf and put the soda here," and so on and so forth. And I did that every single day. And he liked me. And I kind of liked doing what I do. I did it because, it's what it was. We had to work. I knew what the ethic was. We had to work. From there, at about 14 years old, there was a pizza house next door. So the gentleman, his name was Sal. He says, "Do you want to work here after you get out of work at Angelo's Market?" Now, at that time, I was getting out of work at 7 o'clock at night, and I would work at the pizza house till midnight and walk home at midnight, go to school, strive to do good, and I did that all the way until I was 16 years old. Then at that point, Angelo's Market, he decided that he was going to move to West Main Street on the corner of Lincoln and West Main, which is further down from where we are now. And I was, after school, I would still continue working. Summers, I would work all day. And then at that point, I was in high school. And in high school, I went to Goodwin Tech. And I did not take culinary. Angelo taught me a lot about food and the business. So I was pretty well equipped. I knew the knowledge of, the food industry at that point. Not as well as I do now. And I actually became an electrician. So I was doing a lot of electrical work and doing that kind of stuff as well in the construction industry, but always maintaining my job at Angelo's Market. And I was 21. I had to take the crossroads now. Angelo was older. He was almost 70 years old at this point. He's like, Joe, I want to give you the store. You want to take over the store? I took it over. I talked it over with my mother and my father. And at that point, I really had no money. I mean, I had a couple of dollars, but nothing, substantial. So Angelo says, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Angelo, I don't have no money. It's not. Don't worry about the money because I'll help you." It's okay. I'm going to take over the store. So I was 21 years old, and Angelo says, "Okay, here, every month you pay me this much money, and you'll be fine." Be naive, whatever it may be. I was 21 years old. I took the risk, and I didn't even think of it as a risk. I thought of it as, this is like a father figure to me. He's not going to steer me wrong. I mean, and he didn't. He put me on the right path. So at 21 years old, and he stayed on, and Angelo at that time, he had bypass surgeries, so he wasn't in the greatest health. So he would come in and help me out. Joe, do this, Joe, do that. Now, did I have any sense of running a business? No. I just knew I had the work ethic. I was single, 21 years old. I would work every single day. I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because at the time we sold produce and stuff like that. Go to the market, get the produce, get to the store by 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, winters, summers, fall, whatever. And sell the produce, get the store ready, and I only had one other employee, whoever it may be. And at that time, they would watch the front, and I would do the rest of the stuff in the store. And then from there, I just kept growing it in a small little space. And excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. From there, the building that we were in wasn't the greatest shape. So from there, we just kind of, I had to find another space. Now I was, maybe 23, 24 years old. And at the time, I had just met my wife, which I got married when I was 24. And I met her at the store. She'd come in. And then from there, I had a great friend of mine. It was Victor Tomaso. The Tomaso family has helped me by leaps and bounds. So this building over here where we're sitting in came up for sale. And I said, okay, I'd like to buy this building. But I couldn't afford to buy the building. It was like $500,000. That was like, Jeff Bezos money, in comparison. So make a long story short, I know you have a lot of questions. They helped me, and I ended up buying this building. And I moved the store here. But now I was only, 24, 25 years old. This was in 1995. I don't know even if you were even born by then. No.
It's not. No.
You weren't even born in 1995. So in 1995, I said, I'm going to make this big move. Imagine yourself, you're 21 years old, you're still in school, making these moves now, okay? I was married. I had just bought a house too. That was another whole story that's behind that. I had such great help in this community because everybody saw how hard I worked, and I was a young kid, striving to do, things that I was working 7 days a week, and they would help me, I was able to buy a house. I bought this building, and believe me, it wasn't cash. It was all mortgages. The bank was right across the street, as you could see right there. It's Carter Mario now, but that was a bank. I'd go there, and I'm like, this guy, Bill, His name is Bill. I says, Bill, I need money. He goes, oh, how much you need? I need 50,000. All right, sign over here. It was that easy. You can't do that today. And I paid everybody back, and I've been successful. And then we moved here. I was like, wow, what am I going to do with this huge building? This huge building turned out to be a very small building in comparison to what we are today. And here we are, 30 years later. In 1995 to 24, yeah. So we're almost 30 years, 29 years in this building, and it's been great. I have wonderful employees, and it's one of those success stories. But what I want to say is, there is opportunity in this world, and especially in America. If you work hard and you're good to people, people help you, and that's where we are. That's the story of how I became to where I am today.
So you said that this building has now been under your name for Angelo's Market for over 30 years, about 30 years. Are there any more thoughts of maybe relocating again, finding a bigger space or a different space in New Britain?
So I don't think I would do a bigger space or relocate out of New Britain. New Britain is my home. I immigrated from Italy in 1975 to New Britain. This would kind of be always my home. I own a lot of product in real estate in New Britain now. I'm well known. I'm a figure of New Britain. Um, I like the fact that it's not only about business.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the fact that, such as yourself, Nathan, you've come to me and you've doing this interview. We're part of history in New Britain now. It's not just being in business and making money anymore for me. It's about loving what I do. I get to do, talk to people, and I'm part of the community. That is also, a legacy that you want to leave behind. Money comes and goes. But when you can leave a good legacy behind, and that's my goal, and I have wonderful people. I've met thousands of people all over the world. And you know what? Anytime I travel, and I travel quite often, there seems to be, even my kids are amazed, is like how many people know me. We'll be in an airport and, hey, Joe, we'll be at Home Depot. Hey, how you doing? And it's like, wow, it's almost, I'm not going to put myself in a, rock star category, but because I'm nowhere mean by that, but it's, that kind of,
The Michael Jackson impact.
it's the Michael Jackson impact. And you know what? And it's true.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't know who the people are because, they look familiar, but they'll know my name and, I love the food and I love this. I thank you. I always thank the people, but then a lot of times I have to say, and my wife says, "Who's that?" I was like, I don't know. It's one of those things. Just like, a lot more people know me than I know of them. They've come here, and we get people from all over the state. We do a lot of catering and do catering at the Capitol with our American Art Museum. It's another great venue.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, this kind of small family-owned business has been a big part of your life. You met your wife, and you just started from a young age. What do you think are some positives for New Britain and the community as a whole of having not just this, but other small family-owned businesses in the area?
So, New Britain has gotten a bad rap over the years. New Britain was the industrial capital of the world. That's why so many people influxed into New Britain. There was factories and it was a hustle and bustle town. I came in 1975, but the stories that elder people have told me, my father-in-law, Angelo, many people that come through here, downtown was like a New York City Times Square every day. I've been here. I went through schools in New Britain. I grew up in New Britain. The community has gone from, where we were in 1975, because it's all I know, because I've been here. It's got a bad rap. It was dangerous. It was this. A lot of people had, this misconception of New Britain being this inner city. Nobody wants to live there. Everybody was fleeing out of New Britain because they wanted to be in a safe town. Well, let me tell you something. Over the years, I've seen the changes because I've been involved. I've been in New Britain. I've been, not in politics, but I'm around enough politics where I see it. We're having a huge change in New Britain. The mayor today, Mayor Aaron Stewart, She's doing a phenomenal job. She's been the mayor now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 terms. I don't remember exactly. Um, the changes that have happened in New Britain are changes that we're people are seeing us on the map of the United States, not just local. We're doing some major changes here. We're a fast growing city. We're getting developed. I see a lot of beautifications happening. The downtown district, Avenue, building these beautiful buildings downtown, the streetscapes. People are starting to come back to New Britain and saying, wow, this is a place where I grew up and I would love to, it's a great community. It's starting to become that community where people want to live here. Um, I see a lot of people from out of town. What happened was New Britain is, it seems like everybody I talk to, at some point or another, there was always an attachment to New Britain because all the immigrants came to New Britain because of all the work that was here. And somehow, oh, my great grandfather used to work in New Britain. I came to visit. I wanted to see where, so we get that. And they come to Angelo's Market. We just had a movie producer, first time in Connecticut. And a friend of his was from New Britain, never been in Connecticut, never been to New Britain. And matter of fact, at Easter, he came in and he introduced himself. He lived in Beverly Hills, movie producer. He did, all kinds of movies. And he happened to walk in and he did an interview with us. He had it on Instagram. He loved the store, loved New Britain, and he's thinking about shooting a film in New Britain.
Wow.
So that's the kind of, respect that New Britain is getting.
A lot of history, rich history.
There's a lot of history here. New Britain, I mean, you could take a look at some of these homes, around the Walnut Hill Park here. You have Stanley Works. You have a lot of these are beautiful historic homes that back in the day, you had to have some money. I mean, you could just look at the sizes of these homes. They're probably like, the elite lived here in the West End, all around New Britain.
So have there been any goals or milestones that you have hit since you've been the owner, and also are there any that you hope to hit in the future?
I'm going to tell you a story. So when I bought this building from Papagino's Corporation. So I was coming from the little store. So the day of the closing, we were at the attorney's office, and their attorney and whatever, the 2 or 3 guys, I bet probably all attorneys for Papagino's, the corporation. So I was a young kid. Now, in business, sometimes it's hard to deal with younger adults. I was 24 years old. I didn't know much about real estate. I didn't know much about business, but I knew what I could do. So we were sitting prior to going into the closing, okay? And, these 3 attorneys, they were older gentlemen, dressed up in suit and tie, and I was just like 24-year-old kid. So they're like, so you're buying this building. What's your plan? I said, well, I own Angelo's Markets right down the street. And they're like, well, how big is this store? I said, it's probably like 1,000 square feet. And, at the time, I don't remember the sales, maybe, I don't know, $100,000 a year. I don't know. So this is going back, 30 years ago. And they're like, okay, and what are you going to do in this building? And I said, well, I'm going to move to Angelo's Market. So they were asking me questions that I really didn't have a clue, numbers and, what my goal was, the profit margins. Did I really know all that stuff? I'm not going to lie to you. No, I didn't know that stuff. They're like, what's your goal how much gross revenue you want to get out of this building? I says, my goal is going to be within 5 years to grow my business to $1 million a year. They laughed. They're like, yeah, okay, this kid, right? And I can still see it. We're sitting in the attorney's office, and they laughed at me. They're like, and you know what they said? If we could get one of our stores at $1 million gross a year, we wouldn't be selling this building to you. So whatever, we signed the paperwork. Let me tell you something. That goal happened after 5 years. Perseverance, hard work. I used to, if I had to sleep here, I would sleep here. That's what it takes, dedication. And I teach my kids the worst words that anybody could say to me is that I can't do it. That's not in my vocabulary. My vocabulary, my words are, there's nothing I can't do. And I've proven it. And I still prove it to myself every single day. And that's my goal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Just that talk about hard work, perseverance, kind of beating the odds. They didn't
Right.
believe in you, but you were able to show them in 5 years that you could hit your goal. Very, very impressive. And lastly, I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but what kind of legacy when you move on? You're no longer with Angelo's Market, whatever that is. Doesn't seem like anytime soon. But what's the kind of legacy you hope to leave behind?
And you know what? It's funny that you asked me this question, because this is the conversation I had with my wife this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're having coffee. That's an interesting conversation that we're going to have. So my wife and I were discussing my kids. I told you about my kids. My son is a doctor. My middle daughter, she's doing phenomenal, graduate. My youngest daughter is going into medical school. She's going to be a doctor. And I'm blessed. Great kids. I said, at the end of the day, my legacy is knowing that my parents were immigrants and I'm an immigrant, that we worked hard and we strived. And what we have is a story. At the end of the day, money, product, cars, houses, that all stays behind. But someone's story is their legacy. That somebody can say, you know what, I remember Joe, he did this, this, and this, and this. We all have a story, and we all have a road that we take. Our legacy at the end of the day is about someone else telling the story about that person. That's all it is. Other than that, that's all we have. And because my wife was saying, I'm a good storyteller. I said, I'm not a storyteller. I just like people's story because I like listening to people's story. I talk a lot. My wife said, "Oh, you do always talk all day long." But you know what? We all have a story. You have a story. I have a story. We all have and we don't know each other's story until you start talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you explore. And just like you are doing this morning, most people don't know my story. They know I own Angelo's Market. They might know that I own a lot of real estate because I own a real estate company as well. Now I've expanded my portfolios per se, and that's where we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your
Welcome.
time this morning. Once again, I just want to give a big thank you to Joe, his wife, and all the other employees of Angelo's Market for treating me so well when I came in. If you ever find yourself in central Connecticut, driving through maybe to Boston, maybe to New York, make sure you stop at Angelo's Market in New Britain. You won't be disappointed.
If you look at this map and you see the big water, big lake right in the middle, that's where I'm at. It's more south. Okay.
But I can make it out of a 4 point if you don't mind that.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.